Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's afternoon in Nairobi right now. Um, Toyin, and myself have prepared a presentation for submitting digital work, and I'll be sharing my screen with you. Kindly allow me to share the screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
You can see my screen. So we'll be taking you through the presentation, Mastering Your Pitcher Award Submission, How to Craft Entries That Inspire, Connect, and Win. The presentation will be done by myself and Tosin. And the session objectives that we have is that by the end of the session, you learn how to understand your category and what's eligible, identify what makes winning work stand out, avoid common submission mistakes, completing your entry form with clarity and confidence. And we'll also have an engaging session, a Q&A session with practical insights. So for the category overview, each category, especially in digital, each category in general celebrates different aspects of excellence, from creativity to effectiveness, innovation, and craft. Digital is also included. So we advise that when you're submitting, you need to review the Pitcher Awards guidelines for eligibility. You need to check your campaign type, if it's ATL, if it's digital, experiential, and so on and so forth. You need to look at the entry period and the market scope. You also need to look at the team or agency eligibility to enter awards. Finally, you ask yourself, does this work with the spirit of the category? And what business or social problem does it solve? Then what works? This is the DNA of winning entries. The winning entries share three traits: clarity, insight, and impact. And in clarity, they tell a simple, powerful story. In insight, they reveal deep understanding of the people or culture of the brand that you're working on. And the impact, they show measurable results of the campaign. So our pro tip is to have the best cases which have balance, strategy, creativity, and results. Then I'll hand it over to Toyin.
All right. Am I audible? All right. So just picking up from where am I audible, please? Let me just
Yes, you are.
All right, great. So picking up from where Lynne left, she's spoken through the overview, what works, what doesn't work. I'll be taking you through examples of strong past entries. And these are just examples, not limited to this. I strongly advise that you visit the picture websites, or if you attended the showcase held this year, to just see what works, what could, potentially give you a gold or even, above a gold. So the first example is the world most followed prisoner, South Africa. And what did this have? Cultural relevance and creative bravery. Thinking about what Lynne mentioned, it had clarity, it had insight, and it was very impactful. There was clear storytelling from problem to solution. The second example is Every Name Counts from Nigeria. It had human insight and emotional storytelling. This had strong digital ties, following through engagement and awareness. And what made them stand out? It had an authentic African perspective, there was impactful storytelling, and it resonated with everyone who read the case file. Now, very common mistakes that we see, we saw this in the last session as well. Weak category fit. Your campaign, your story hinges on an out of home execution and you submit it in digital, or it's a media led execution with a digital leg. It's not really a strong enough submission for digital. That's one thing. You need to ensure that the submission the strength of your submission lies with the category you are submitting it with. Meaning that if you see that the major execution or the major strategy for this hinges on out of home, submit it under the applicable category. Same thing for BTL and all the other elements covered, all the other categories covered, to ensure that it is first of all the right category fit, because wrong category fit results in immediate disqualification from the awards. Overcomplicated storytelling. As Lynn had said earlier, clarity. It needs to be straightforward. You don't need to overcomplicate it. This was the issue we're trying to solve. This is the big idea. This is what we did, and this is the impact. It needs to be very simple, very clear. Another thing we noticed, and it's very shocking to see, is that some submissions didn't have results. So when you did all the good things you said you did, what became of it? Because it's the impact that lets us know that this campaign was effective. Without the results, you can't even be considered for any award. So let's ensure that the results are there, but not just there, the results are relevant to the category you're submitting for. Late or incomplete submissions. Maybe it's missing the case video, or it's missing the one pager that shows the summary of everything you've done. Please go through before you submit to ensure that you have everything marked in the checklist for submission before you click that final button. And then the deadlines. Pitcher has been generous enough to extend deadlines quite a few times. So please watch out for the emails. Try to work with the deadline shared to ensure that you do not miss the time for submission. The last part is generic insights. In a bid to have your work submitted for an award, you don't need to force fit. There have to be quality insights there for you to make a case as to why you needed to do what you needed to do. This hints at some intentionality at the campaign planning phase. So you can't just rush to execute or rush to a big idea. What was the reason? Why did you need to come up with this? You need very strong insights before you enter it for the award. And then it's tip. And I mean, this applies to almost everything in that we do. Always have someone outside your team review your case. When you're too close to a subject, sometimes you might miss your obvious pitfalls. So having an external party just take a second look always helps. Now, when you're completing the entry form, like we said earlier, be clear, be concise, simple language wins, answer every question completely, make use of visuals and data. These are to your advantage. And then follow the word count and file size limits. And then we spoke about the checklist earlier, and we've reiterated it here to say before you submit, check, is your story simple and easy to follow? Does it demonstrate measurable success? Are your supporting materials attached, either your case film or the supporting image? Does it align with the category's purpose? Before you even submit, there's a whole, details as to what the category or subcategory, is. So you ensure you read it well before you submit under a particular subcategory. Now, tips for a strong case video. Keep it under 2 minutes. Follow a very simple structure. What was the challenge? What were the insights that led to the idea? What was the idea? What did you do? And then what were the results? Ensure you add subtitles. It makes it easier to follow your case film. Use authentic tone and visuals. We don't need to overcomplicate it. Just show us, using the case film, the authentic reactions from people, if there were any, the authentic visuals that were used, authentic results. No need to, add too much drama or, razzmatazz in the case film. And then end it powerfully with strong results and the impact that it had on the people you intended to speak to. Now, finally, a strong case isn't about how fancy it looks, but it really is about how clearly you are able to articulate yourself, what you've done, and tell the story of impact. Category selection should not be an afterthought. I mean, I'm sure other speakers will say this as well. It should not be an afterthought. It should be worked into every fabric of the campaign. It means that you must have had the thought that, okay, as I'm working on this campaign, I would like to submit it for XXX in XXX category for XXX award. And from there you begin to ensure that the requirements, are being met. It's not a media campaign with a digital leg, but rather an intentional campaign crafted for digital. That ensures that from start to finish, you are thinking digital. It's not just, you carry an asset and you slap it on somewhere and, you amplify it. That's not, that's just amplification. So this ensures intentionality from start to finish. And it's really important. Be real, be local, be insightful. Show how you creatively solved a real problem. And then great storytelling wins hearts before it wins awards. Super, super important. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We're happy to take your questions now. Share with us any challenges you face and or any tips that you need. And then we're happy to answer you. Thank you guys.